Well, folks, if I can get your attention, and again, please keep eating. I just wanted to kind of give a breakdown of the day. It's really important to me, and hopefully it's important. I'm assuming it's important to you too. I want to honor your time, and I'd really like to wrap everything up by 2. And most importantly, I told the panelists it wouldn't go any later than 2, so I want to honor that. But I am so excited about this. As you all know, we've been entering into a visioning process. It has started with our Vision sermon series, and then once we complete the sermon series at Easter, then our vision team will begin their work for about 2 to 3 months to really then pray over the responses you all have given, the feedback you've given, frankly, a lot of what we hear today of what our community needs are. And then you all, the church, will have a draft of that vision to then, I don't know if it's a vote or just to approve, but that will be a chance for us to do that. So I'm really excited about that. A couple of housekeeping things today. You should have seen in front of your spot, everybody has a packet of information. Do you all see that? It's got information with all of our panelists. What we tried to do in order to maximize the amount of time of the panel, because really the goal of today is to hear from our panelists who represent 7 different organizations, community groups, clubs that they are a part of, and they're all going to be answering the same question. So hopefully what you will see is little bits of different responses from each of them depending on who they serve. So hopefully by the time we leave today, you will have a better sense of who is in my community, what are some of the needs and current happenings in the community, and where do we feel that God is maybe calling us to get involved, or some things that we want to explore. So all that information on kind of an overview of each organization and what they do, as well as information on who to get involved with, if we would, or who to contact for getting involved. They will have a chance at the end. What we're going to do is about 20 minutes till 2, we're going to stop all other questions, and each of them are going to get a chance to share with you ways you can get involved, or if there's anything else they want to share. I know it's kind of tight, but hopefully this is the beginning of a good relationship. Does everybody have a pen they can write with? I'm sorry? Oh, there we go, back of the chair. Thank you. If you need a pen, make sure to look in the back of your chair. If you need to turn your chair around, that's fine. And again, if you need to grab some more food throughout, please feel free to do so. The way it'll work is we will kind of, I'll give it just a few more moments, and I will call to order, we'll pray, and then we'll begin the panel questions. I'm thinking, depending on how long that goes, if we have time, there may be a chance for 1 or 2 questions from you all. I do ask, if you ask a question, that it be a broad enough question that everybody can answer. So it's not just, Deputy Chief Wallach, tell me about the police department, because nobody else can answer that question. So if it's something broad, and I will tell you, Priscilla and I have really tried to hone down the questions so that they can answer some specific things for us as a church. And the panelists have had these questions, so they've had a chance to kind of process through what their answers look like. Do y'all have any questions about what today's going to look like? Panelists, do y'all have any questions? All right. Okay, so what we will do is I will call us to order, I'll pray, and then we will get started. Does that sound good? All right, let's pray. God, we thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts that you have given us, for the wonderful food that we received, which tasted particularly good today. We thank you for everybody who helped to prepare for this time together. We thank you for each panelist that is here, as well as the organization and the constituents that they represent. And they are such a wide swath across the whole community. We are excited to celebrate the diversity that is present around us. And God, we ask that you would just open our ears as a church to where you may be leading us. Help us to pay particular attention to something that may stir something within us. Maybe something that makes us angry, or if there's something that elicits a particular emotion, help us to lean into that. Give us opportunities as a church to have those conversations, to explore that more deeply. And most importantly, help us as a church to take seriously the call to make a difference in our community. We ask this in all things in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, at this time, I don't know if you all want to kind of make your way forward. There's a bit of a step, so it's probably best to come up front. And I will say this is being live streamed as well, so for folks that maybe, I know we had a couple cancellations today from folks who RSVP'd but weren't able to come. So folks will be able to follow along with this later from this. No, there's no set order. All right, so what I will do is I will quickly introduce each person just by name, the organization they're a part of, and I will give them a chance to, afterwards again, to share if there's anything we missed or anything that wasn't in this packet or ways to get involved. So first we have Kip Corriveau. Did I say it right? Okay. Kip is from 211 Tampa Bay. Kip is, particularly he works with the aging, elderly and aging, but there's a lot of data that you represent and that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So there's Kip. We have Tawny Swain Castle from Homeless Empowerment Program. And so we're excited to have you here. We have Carlos Mercado from the Hispanic Outreach Center. In looking at our community, and I did just we'll get to Joanne and a couple presenters, but we looked at who is represented by the Neighborhood Association, and so I drew a map based on their kind of the grid that they represent, which is from Belcher to Gulf Bay to Drew to Highland. And so in that area, about 20% are Hispanic Latino. So we're excited to have Carlos here. We have Andrea Ewing Watson from Clearwater High School. We're grateful to have you here. Deputy Chief Michael Wallach from the Police Department. We have Joanna Siskin, who is the president of the Skycrest Neighborhood Association I mentioned, representing that area of about 2 blocks deep and about 4 or 5 blocks wide. And then we have Samantha Moulet from My Clearwater, which is Neighborhood Services, correct? Okay. Awesome. Well, let's give it up for our panelists and thank them for being here. And so the way it'll work is Priscilla and I will alternate asking a question, and we'll just ask however y'all want to do it. I would like to hear from each person if you can. If you can keep it short, that would be great. And then just pass the mic around. So you all will see, again, please take notes. And there also is on the back of on the last page, we've been asking feedback questions. There's a feedback question on the bottom that's very open-ended. I am going to ask that you answer, and it just says, after today's meeting, reflect on the question, my neighborhood is blank. And then write in whatever you want. If you want to tear that off at the end, we'll take that from you. So to begin, the first question, and we'll also have it on the screen for the panelists, in a few words, how would you describe this community, whatever that means to you? So in a few words, how would you describe this community? So whoever would like to start.
I'll start. Hello. I think this is a very diverse community. I also believe that it's a very service-rich community. There are a lot of services that are offered to different populations to be helpful in this organization. There are 2 community redevelopment areas. I don't know if you're familiar with those. There's one in the downtown area, and there's another one that is newly established in the North Greenwood neighborhood. It's just good to know that because those areas are trying to improve and to do better. We're in the HEP is located in the North Greenwood area.
So one of the ways I would describe the community is that there are great gaps in wealth, depending on which neighborhoods you are in Clearwater, for example. There are differences in ethnicity. There's a lot of business and kind of urban. If you just drive around here, there's a lot of like businesses and kind of urban kind of things, as well as residential pockets. So I'm a data person, so when I was talking to Ryan, my company deals with human needs. And so that's the lens that I approach community. And I pulled the zip code that this church is in, and the largest need, it's not going to shock anybody, was housing. So attainable, affordable housing. And so that actually, there were more calls from this zip code for that than almost any other zip code in Clearwater. It was over 47% of our calls from this zip code were about housing issues.
I guess I'll go next. Thank you for allowing me to be here today. I guess my position in this is a little bit different than a lot of people, but we are community-based. We do a lot with the community. The police department is very unique, along with the city. You can go from the beach and half day, you can go all the way to the countryside area, and you can go all the way to Tampa Airport. So there's a lot of different opportunities. It's a relatively low crime area. We encourage our officers to be actively engaged with the community. We recently reinitiated 2 of our community policing officers. They're community liaison officers, Officer Hoxie and Officer Josie Filer, who go out and support a variety of different events. I've been here 26 years. I would say this is probably one of the best communities I've ever been in.
And I'm Joanna Siskin, and I'm the president of the Neighborhood Association. So I'm specifically speaking about the area that Pastor talked about. That would be Belcher, Gulf to Bay, Highland, and Drew Street. And we're a very diverse community. We're also a transitioning community. Skycrest was built in the 50s and 60s. A lot of people moved in, they had families. Those families are grown. We have a lot of seniors now that are moving out and families moving in.
So I am speaking from Clearwater High School perspective. I'm the college and career coordinator as well as liaison for the community. One of the biggest things I would say is with what most people are saying on the panel is that we are in a very diverse community. A lot of our needs are more so on the volunteerism element. We're servicing many different students from all different backgrounds. And we're like in the heart of Clearwater. As you know, we are right on Gulf to Bay now. So the need is always volunteerism, which is the biggest thing that our community needs.
And I'm Samantha Moulet. I'm with our City of Clearwater's Neighborhood Services Division. So I work with neighborhood groups and residents and community groups all across the city. To speak on that, I think one thing that I've noticed, I moved here about almost 3 years ago from Portland, Oregon, and the biggest thing that I noticed moving to Clearwater and the population of our residents and the people we work with is people really care about the city. People have lived here a very long time, a lot of them, and they really do care about this city. They want to help, they want to make a difference. I used to run our volunteer programs, and it was astounding to me the amount of people who would reach out and say, hey, I just want to help. Where can you put me? Where can I help out in my community, in my neighborhood? What can I do to help the city or to help other community organizations within Clearwater? So that was the biggest and most impactful thing that I noticed about this community is, yes, there's always a need for volunteers, and we also have so many people that are willing to help out and take care of their city.
Hi, my name is Carlos Mercado from the Hispanic Outreach Center. How would I describe this community? Since I'm a community chaplain as well, and so I'm speaking to a faith-based audience, I'll use a faith-based vernacular. I would say the community is ripe for what you guys want to do. At the end of the day, getting the pulse of the community needs puts you in a position to build relational capital. And that's what's key to have success in the vision you guys want to create. And so every panelist up here represents a way for you guys to get the pulse of the community so that when you create this vision, you understand that the work you're about to endeavor on is timely and much needed.
All right, panelists, your second question is, speaking on behalf of the population you serve, what is the most important thing that they would want others to know about them? So, for example, are there any assumptions that we might have about them that they would like to correct? Are there any values that are really important to them? And again, the question is on the screen if you need to see it again.
I would say this neighborhood is a very caring neighborhood. It wants to build community within the neighborhood. We like having events, everybody participating. I just say very caring, committed community.
So one thing that I always like to clarify and educate people on is our neighborhood associations and what those actually are within our city. We have about 75 registered neighborhood associations around the city of Clearwater, and those range all across the board. So sometimes those are HOAs. That's your paid, mandatory fee or maybe a voluntary fee you're paying in. They're there. They may, give you a ticket for your lawn being too long or your house being painted the wrong color. But our neighborhood associations are so much more than that, whether they are HOAs or whether they are what we call voluntary associations like Skycrest, where it's at the core of that neighborhood association, it's volunteers, it's people from that community that are working together to build community, to attack different challenges, whether it's a speed zone or we want to interact more with our kids or have neighborhoods day or a block party, or we want to put American flags out for the 4th of July. Or maybe put in some public art or a street mural or something that can help show our identity as a neighborhood. So I always like to clarify, when you hear neighborhood organization or neighborhood association, some people, they get fearful of what that means or they don't want to get ticketed, but there's so much more than that, and most of our associations across the city are working so hard to get their own neighborhood residents involved. So I would encourage you, learn about if you have a neighborhood association in your community, if you're part of Skycrest around this neighborhood association, reach out, talk to your neighbors to say, hey, what does that look like in our community? And if there isn't one, it's really, really easy to just start with a small group of people and start working together to find commonalities within your neighborhood, within your street. It doesn't have to be a neighborhood of 1,000 houses. It can start with just one street, just starting to work together, starting to talk, starting to get to know each other, maybe put together a monthly meeting or an annual meeting where you can just have a place to bond and to come together to solve challenges.
So my organization serves all 954,000 residents of Pinellas County. So my program is specifically geared towards seniors over the age of 60. So that reduces that number to 335,000 people in Pinellas County. And if you actually look at people over the age of 70, that's still over 150,000 people. There are more people over the age of 70 than are under the age of 18 in Pinellas County. So you can just think about the aging population, and so the question is about what others want to know about them. They still have things to give. They're still active. If you know one senior, you know one senior. And it's all of our roles to fight ageism. The other thing I would say is that I'm one of the 2.7 million Floridians that are an unpaid family caregiver. And so you probably know folks, or you yourself may be an unpaid family caregiver. And with folks like that, I always say, ask them what they need. Don't think you know.
I guess I'll go next. I guess what's the important thing that I want everybody to know, that we just don't out, that's our primary job, is to go out there and ensure the safety and security of the citizens and tourists and businesses. But that's not our only job. Our job out there is also being part of the community. Like I mentioned earlier, we started the Community Liaison Officer program back up. But our job, too, is also to connect with the community, and we do that in a variety of ways. Just yesterday, as Samantha mentioned, we had Neighborhoods Day. Myself, the chief, and a lot of other officers were out there connecting with the community, letting everybody know who we are, what they do, that we're able to, you can call us, you can reach out to us. Recently with the HEP, we just did a mentorship program with the younger children that are in the program. And each week of this 8-week program that we did, we helped teaching them, right from wrong, truth versus lie, career choices. We brought in educational components of it. So we're not just out there always catching bad guys. That's not our only job. Well, that's our primary job to make sure the citizens are safe and the tourists and the businesses. That's not the only thing we do. I would want people to know that we are here for that community support. You can reach out to us. We reach out to you guys. So I think that's the most important part.
So I just want to speak on behalf of the volunteering a little bit more, just to give you more of a clear idea of what I mean in as far as volunteering. Volunteering can be not just at Clearwater High School, but any of your local elementary schools, middle schools. The need is usually having lunch pals, which is, having a student that you're mentoring and you do lunch pals with. I also work with Take Stock in Children. Those students need 15 mentoring sessions to be able to get a scholarship. That's about $18,000 when they graduate as a senior. Volunteering can be helping tutoring. We have a diverse community of different students who are having to work at 16, so they're not getting that additional assistance that they need because they might not be able to do the extended learning that some of the teachers are able to do after school because they have to work. So volunteering doesn't necessarily have to be just, picking up within your community, but also engaging with students who need that additional service.
Hi. So I work with the homeless and homeless families, homeless individuals, homeless veterans, homeless individuals. I myself was homeless. The face of homelessness is not what you think. It is, and the face of homelessness is changing. I would say the age is higher. So we're having older folks with more chronic conditions who have no place to go. And those are the folks that we're serving at HUP, in addition to the families. Housing is hard right now to maintain, as I'm sure you're aware. And I think it's important to this population to treat them with the same dignity, the same respect that you would a fellow church member or somebody else that you meet. I think it's very important. Often they're ignored or invisible. You just let me just blow right past, not make eye contact. But it's not really what they need.
One more thing. Also, if you have any type of job opportunities, apprenticeships, things of that nature, I always have students that are looking for growth in that area as well.
The Hispanic Latino community, what would they want them? By the way, I've been on leave because my wife and I just had twins. And so I did not get the questions. That said, I do feel I know my community well enough to be able to have a decent, fair answers to these questions. The Latino community, what would they want you to know? It's not a monolithic community. Like if I get countries from around the world that speak that English is the primary language of the land, England, New Zealand, Australia, the United States, and I put you guys together, you guys are not monolithic. Different cultures, right? A lot of differences, but also a lot of commonality. The Latino community is the same way. Like you, we love our family. We want to see our children excel and get ahead. Some of us are here, I use the phrase legally. Some of us are here not legally. Everyone, no matter legally or not, wants to be able to be a productive citizen as best they can. And that's a reality of Latino families. I would say that, culturally, we're introverts and we're extroverts depending on what. So if you're a Caribbean Latino, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban, probably extroverted. Myself, Puerto Rican parents, we like to talk with our hands. We're very extrovert. We're very loud, right? Where my Central American brothers and sisters, very introverted, right? Very soft-spoken, don't want attention. They want to stay out of the spotlight. They don't want to cause no trouble. The Latino community, I remember coming in and on staff at a church as a community outreach director. I moved from Texas to Florida and was in High Point, and I'm gauging community outreach from a poverty perspective. And within 6 months, I had to rewrite my whole strategy approach as if I was in the suburbs, a more prosperous, strategic approach to serving the Latino community, which sounds crazy, but the reason being, in comparison to where they come from, they have a lot here. And so we will look at them and say, man, they're really in need, which there is need in the Hispanic community. But in comparison to where they come from, they have a roof over their heads, their kids have clothes on their backs, they have insurance, health insurance for the most part. They have access to resources that they would not have back from where they're from. That puts them in a mentality of not so much, hey, we're in need, as much as somebody who, upper middle class family mentality, as crazy as that sounds. So from that perspective, I would let you know that the Hispanic community is very diverse. There's keywords up here being used, diverse. But here's the key to accessing the Hispanic community. Practicing the ministry of presence, consistency, always being there. I've seen organizations that have the most success with the Latino community are the ones that are constantly present. As a church body, I'm sure you understand the word incarnation, right? God was for man, lived among a broken and fallen world in the mix of it, right? And that's what it takes to serve the Latino community. Consistent presence that earns you relational capital. Once you gain that, you will have the heart of this community.
All right, panelists, question number 3. This is really good, right? Y'all getting some good stuff? Good. I'm filling up my paper, so this is great. So question number 3. This could be for you or your whole organization, or a combination of both. What sorts of issues do you and or your organization spend the majority of your time addressing? Some of it may have been covered, but feel free to say it again. What sorts of issues do you and or your organization spend the majority of your time addressing?
So 211 gets 100,000 calls a year, requests for connection and service. 33,000 of those calls are about housing. So every day, thousands of calls come in about housing. That really is the number one issue in the community. It's either people who are looking for affordable housing, people who have been kicked out of someplace, people who are looking for eviction prevention. It's the cost of housing. It really kind of drives like everything else that's going on for us. The other sort of service we provide that we haven't mentioned is that we operate the 988 suicide prevention line for 9 counties in West Central Florida. So we get about 1,600 calls a month to the suicide prevention line. And so mental health being the other issue that keeps coming up for us.
It's interesting because this question is so big. We do so much at the Homeless Empowerment Program, but we're really trying to address the complexities of homelessness. There may be illness, there may have been a family death, there may have been trauma, any number of things contributing to a person's homelessness in that one point in time. So what we try to do at HEP is to kind of cover all the bases. It's really difficult to get psychiatric evaluation in a timely, and by timely, I mean within a couple of months in the community. So if we have someone in a 60-day shelter bed, we need to help that person, or they're not going to last in a group shelter setting. So we have a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and we have a whole wellness team that's doing the same type of healthcare navigation that Carlos is with his folks, to help them navigate the healthcare system, to advocate for them to get the care that they deserve. Because when they hear that they're homeless, often doctors and healthcare professionals will treat them differently and provide a substandard of care. So we spend a lot of time advocating, going with them to doctors and doing that sort of thing on the health end. On the other end, there are a lot of people in this community working jobs that do not pay livable wages, and we have a workforce development program that's connecting with employers to show them the value of a second chance employee who maybe has a criminal background. Maybe their 20s were not, on the up and up, but now they're 35, they've got a family, and this good paying manufacturing job might work for them. So we're trying to get people more sustainable income and help them to kind of elevate themselves out of just that kind of paycheck to paycheck mentality that we often find ourselves in. But we want to work on the underlying issues of homelessness, because if I gave you an apartment today and you're actively using substances and you're not taking your mental health meds, you're going to get evicted from that apartment. There's something that you're going to do, someone that you're going to bring in, that is, something's going to happen. So we're trying to work on the actual issues that led up to homelessness. I was homeless with a master's degree. I was in a wheelchair, but I was terrible at developing social support. All I did was work. I had no social support. If I'd had social support, maybe I could have avoided it. I don't know. But those are the things that we're looking at. What really led up to the homeless event?
So some of the issues that I spend a lot of my time assisting students with on the college career level is getting their FAFSA forms completed. It's a challenge because it's a big stigma around doing FAFSA. A lot of families don't want their personal information out there, and it's unfortunate because it's a benefit for the student. For example, a lot of the kids have an opportunity. We are one of 5 schools where our kids can actually go to, they can go to SPC for free. So that means their tuition and fees are covered. However, completing FAFSA is one of the big elements that they need to do to be able to get that scholarship to go to SPC. So that's one of the biggest factors. And on the liaison element is getting the mentors in to assist our students with lunch pals and take stock in children, or getting that additional tutoring.
Well, I think everybody knows what the majority of time that the police department is responding to calls for service in reference to citizens' needs and or, crashes or other ongoing issues. But that's not the only issue or the only stuff that we do with the community. Someone brought up here earlier mental health. We have mental health team that addresses, those unique calls for service where it could be a veteran, it could be someone just in need of crisis, because not every call is resulting in someone going to jail or someone getting in trouble. There's a lot of other types of calls that we respond to, and these officers that we have are paired up with a mental health professional, and it may be getting connected with 211, it may be getting them connected with some veteran services. So we do a variety of things. Specifically, what do I do day to day? I would identify myself, I am no longer a crime fighter, I'm more of a problem solver nowadays, dealing with different types of programs, looking at different types of opportunities. What does the police department need? What can the police department benefit from? So that's a little bit of my side.
So the neighborhood association spends a lot of time on trying to keep the neighborhood safe. We have a wonderful partnership with the police department in the city. They come to our monthly meetings. They let us know what's going on in our neighborhoods. And it's also an opportunity for the residents to speak to them about concerns they might be kind of shy about calling up about. So that's part of it. And I would say the other part is building community, whether that's through events, a kayak race, porch parties, several blocks will get together, invite their neighbors, everybody brings something. But building community, I think, is one of the biggest things in keeping people safe, having them be able to have resources at their fingertips, and it's just a healthy way of living, is knowing your neighbors.
And I absolutely agree with what Joanna said. I think the biggest thing that in the neighborhood services role citywide we look for is how do we get information out to you, our residents, and how do we receive information back from you, our residents? And as the city, we're here to serve our residents. And it's really important, in a safety capacity and an infrastructure capacity that we are able to hear from you all when there's something going on in your neighborhood, when there's an issue or somebody that you don't, that is doing something suspicious, when there's a pothole, when there's a street light out, when you notice speeding, any of those kinds of things. We have a very, very large city. We can't be everywhere all at once. So we do really rely on you all for your feedback and your engagement back to us in order to know those kinds of things. And the same thing goes with community engagement in terms of, when we're building a new park, or we are right now looking to put public art in Coachman Park, right? So we very often have community engagement surveys. We very often have community engagement meetings where we'll meet at the rec centers around the city, and we invite you all to come and share your opinions, share your thoughts, your feelings. You all are the experts on this city. A lot of people who've lived here have lived here a very long time and have really great input and thoughts and recommendations into what they'd like to see, whether it's in a park or a piece of property or a community redevelopment agency or area. So that's the biggest thing that we work through, especially within our neighborhood services department, is working with our neighborhood leaders like Joanna, because those leaders help us to have a point of contact in different areas all around the city. And I'll talk about some resources that we have available as well a little bit later, but having that two-way flow from city to citizens and from citizens back to us is one of the most important things.
What sort of issues do you and or your organization spend the majority of your time addressing? So that's a twofold question. I'll start with the organizations. I'm fairly new to the Hispanic Outreach Center. Spent over 10 years with the Suncoast, the YMCA of the Suncoast as a community outreach director. And with an initiative called YMCA Without Walls, which put me in underserved, impoverished communities, bringing a YMCA presence to neighborhoods that don't have access to a YMCA. And so that's kind of like, a unique concept that as a church, the church should have as well, having a church presence in neighborhoods that don't have access to a church. But as a community chaplain, I spend most of my time building relationships. I think that's number one. I think every person here, to be effective in their specific area of expertise, has to be spending time building relationships. And so I would say individually, that's my number one thing, building relationships. As an organization, I came on board the Hispanic Outreach Center as a community health navigator through a grant through BayCare. And so every 3 years, BayCare does a survey to see what are the community needs out there. And in the last survey, mental health was up there in the top 3. And by the way, so that the majority of community service providers, which is what we are up here in this stage, I think the 2 major items is early childhood education and mental health. Those are like the top 2 if you're looking at organizations that are serving community that is always constantly on their plates. But one of the survey top 3 needs in the community was not that there's a lack of resources out there. Baycare discovered, obviously there's a ton of health resources in this particular case, ton of health resources out there, but there's a major disconnect from the people who need the resources having access to that resources. And leading the pack, if you will, was the Latino community. There's resources available, they were not having access to it. And so a three-year grant on the table through Baycare to help address that disparity within the Latino community, to create ways and networks and partnerships for the Latino community to have access to health care in my particular role.
So now we have a slightly more creative question for you to answer without any logistical constraints. So if you had a magic wand and could change one thing in the community, what would it be?
Drew Street. It is probably one of the most unsafe streets. I would say it is the most unsafe street in Clearwater. So they have the things up that record the speeds when you go down Drew. All right, the average speed, the last time I checked, was 58 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone, which means for it to be 58, the average, they're doing 70 and 80 miles an hour. So the city of Clearwater, several years ago, applied for a grant to make Drew Street a complete street, meaning that all forms of transportation, whether that's bicycle, pedestrian, public, cars, it is designed to be safe for everybody. So that would be my big wand-waving wish. And I would encourage all of you to encourage your council to support that. I think, and I don't remember the statistics, and I don't know if you know them or not, but in a 3-year period, there were 1,500 accidents on Drew Street alone. There's 6 to 8 accidents a week. And that's not good. You have people crossing it to go to schools. So that's my big wish.
So my one thing would be the deficit in housing for people making less than 50% of the area median income. So let me unpack that. So the area median income in Pinellas County is $54,000. So that's $27,000 a year. So think of every sort of profession that makes $27,000 a year. When the state housing data folks looked at Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, we have a deficit of 68,000 units for 50% of AMI or below. So if I wave a magic wand, I would have a lot more housing for folks who are working or on fixed incomes.
I think one of the most important things for us to understand is if I had a magic wand, I would like everybody to lock their car. And we sit here and we laugh and joke about it, but all too often people, you know, with the hustle and bustle of cell phones, children, family members, sick family members, loved ones, you know, you get out of your car, you run your house, you drop something, you forget to lock your car, you unfortunately leave your purse in there, you leave your bag in there, your briefcase. Some people leave their car keys in the car. Some people have a garage door opener that just opens a garage, and some people will leave the actual door that leads from the garage into the house unlocked. So you're giving someone that opportunity to go in there. I know this sounds kind of unique to what we're talking about today, but I would really love everybody to lock their cars. I mean, it just would make our job a whole lot easier when it comes to that stuff. Don't leave a gun in the car. Take your gun inside with you, lock your car, take your keys, secure your belongings. it's relatively elementary speaking about it, but it's just part of everybody's hustle and bustle nowadays. And speaking from my 26 years of experience, I'll be honest with you, there are young adults, young kids that will come into the various neighborhoods and they'll door hop. And the first thing they're looking for is that unlocked door handle. And if we all have our cars locked, they're not going to go to your car. They're not going to sit there and break the window. They're going to go to the next car and the next car until they find a car that's, unlocked. And all they're looking for is, the keys to the car. They might steal the car. But if you lock your car, they're going to go to the next car. And we're out there, so.
I'd just like to add something to what he's saying. So for a year, the police come to our meeting every month, and they report how many burglaries, what's going on. So every month, there would be burglaries. They were all car burglaries. It could be 5, it could be 16, and they were all unlocked cars. So he's telling the truth.
Thank you, Joanne.
If I had a magic wand, I think the biggest need is homelessness. I hate to see that there's so many homeless people within our community that don't have some of the basic needs, and it's just really saddening.
Well, I agree with you. But I agree with Kip's magic wand, what he would want for the city, except I would want the organizations that are working together to solve the housing issue to sit together in a room, come up with a plan, pool resources, and get something built that can house those with the 50% AMI. The ones who are on Social Security disability, the ones who are on the SSI, which you can't live on that. Those are the folks taking the shelter beds. And we can't move them on to next because they still can't afford to live out in the community.
A magic wand for one thing. I wish I had several of those wands then, right? Yeah, one thing. I would say for a magic wand, there's a lot of organizations that mean well and their heart's in the right place, including churches, when it comes to helping, since I'm speaking for the Latino community, to come to help and serve the Latino community. I know you guys know this phrase when I use it, weigh the cost. What does it really take to do life with an underserved, impoverished, marginalized, oppressed community? And the key there is, if I could wave a wand, is that people would know what it really means to do life with this community. I think that's a game changer. So if I could wave that wand, it would be that one. Knowing how to do life with people. Instead of, and God forbid that this is us, I'm not saying that it is, that you guys are able to check off a box where you're serving the poor. As a faith-based organization, to love thy neighbor, you're able, once a month you show up at some outreach, check off the box. We're serving the poor, we're serving black and brown communities, we're checking off boxes. But are you doing life with? So that would be my one.
So I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, at least within Clearwater specifically, is we have a lot of really, really great organizations, and even within Pinellas County, there are so many of these organizations, these nonprofits, these government entities that are all working on the same issues. Whether it's housing, whether it's the environment, whether it's veteran services, or homeless services or elderly services. And it seems like what I've noticed is there's a lot of disconnect there. There's a lot of these groups that are working sort of individually towards these problems, it's great we have so many of these organizations, but what I've noticed is there's kind of a lack of connect. There's a lack of like a networking or a group where people with the same interest can either network with each other within their same organizational focus, or connect with community partners, because every single day, I meet people like the people here up on this panel, and then I get to go out into the community, and now I have a connection. Now I know that resource exists, that resource exists, and I can go out on my day-to-day while I'm talking with residents and neighborhoods, and when I hear something, when I hear a challenge or a problem, I can say, hey, I have just the person that you can talk to. I know just the organization. And I think that's so important, no matter what field you're working in or what challenge you're working on, to know what other resources lie within the community, because we're all out working with people every single day, talking with people. And I think that really is the key to a successful community, and that community building is to know what resources are out there so we can connect with each other. The city that I worked for previous to this, they had a group, and it was called Faith-Based Coffee, and it was actually run by a church organization. And every single person, they did a coffee once a month. Every single nonprofit organization, whether they were faith-based or not, everyone went to this coffee. There was probably 200 people every single month at this coffee, and they would organize the tables within different organizational topics, and then at some point they would switch everybody around, mix everybody up, so you're also, you're faced with people that work maybe in something completely different that you've never heard of before. And then every single month they'd have a speaker. One organization would present maybe 20 minutes on their specific topic, so it'd be more of a deeper dive into that specific organization. And and schools also attended those. Other churches also attended those. Government entities attended those. And it was so valuable, the connections that I made through that group. And I haven't seen something like that here yet. And I think Largo is kind of starting something like that, a nonprofit connect type of session. But I think if I could wave my magic wand, it would be either to have the capacity to start something like that, or to help build that within our community.
Samantha, as you answer that, I'm thinking about that's how Kip got on this panel, because you said, hey, I just heard a great presentation. He's your guy. Get him on there. So she's living it out, y'all. So, okay, so this question, I'm looking at time. Y'all will see on your questions 5 and 6, but I'm going to combine them just as a follow-up together. So, Sam, they'll be, just that second one is kind of just the follow-up. We're going to loop it together. So this question is also kind of creative. And I'm going to preface this. So if you could design your ideal church as a community partner, and I'm going to ask you, when I say church, each of us have our own experience with church, our own beliefs or not. Let's take the theological stuff out of it. So you're not meddling into what people believe about God or anything like that. Just as a community partner, if you could design your ideal church as a community partner, what would that church look like? What activities would they be involved in? What efforts would they be making? What things would they refrain from doing? And as a follow-up, I know this is a lot, I can repeat it. As a follow-up, what would be a good first step for that church to take in order to make the ideal the reality? Just a small question.
So I want to start by just acknowledging that this is the first step right here. And it's a really good first step. And I hope that everyone's proud of this as a congregation that you've done this. I think it's very important. I also think that the church is usually, if people are involved in churches, the church is going to be the first call with a family or an individual in crisis. If you don't know what the resources are in the community, you're not going to be able to help that individual as well as if you do know them. So this is a really good first step in understanding what resources are available to folks. But I also think that involvement with a variety of organizations on a variety of levels, and kind of for a congregation to kind of strategically get involved in different areas, you may have someone on the board level, or you may have someone volunteering at the soup kitchen or whatever. You have various levels of engagement based on the variety of interests that your congregation's going to have. And starting there, but kind of mapping it out, and then finding the people to fill the shoes, to be involved, so that you're in the community, understanding from a hands-on experience what the resources are available. Most of the organizations that you'll interface with, like 211 does like 5,000 different things. okay? And one of the things that they do, they're like the first call for a family who's homeless. Like they're who we tell people to call, because across the county, everything's coordinated entry. So even if you called me and said, I've got a homeless guy who really needs a bed, I can't give him a bed. I have to go through the Homeless Leadership Alliance to get him a bed. You know what I mean? Like, so there's some complexities of what should be a simple system in our community. Those are kind of the ins and outs that would be really helpful for you to learn.
So since we're running low on time, let me do sort of bullet points. An ideal partner, one that's a listener. I think we know what the problem is, or we think we know what people need. It really always starts with asking what people need, what's going to make their life better. The other one is a connector. So we've already sort of talked about this, making connections, you know, from the community and from your congregants to these services, and also helping us connect with your people. And I would say the third one would be convener, bringing other people and organizations together in things like this today.
Me? All right. I think number 5 is like your best question on this sheet so far. These are all great questions, but number 5 is like really no need to replicate the wheel. As a body of people looking to serve other people, coming side by side with organizations that are already boots on the ground, if you will, right? Number one, it saves you money. Let's be honest, right? Budget's huge in churches. We want to be able to love our neighbor through our resources, but not replicating the wheel is a huge financial gain for you guys, putting you in a better position to really tailor how you use your financial resources to serve your community. Coming next to community partners, you both can share the numbers then. So homelessness, you connect with my sister here, Ms. Tani, law enforcement, community liaison issues. You have community partners where you can connect with them. They're already are doing the work. The transition is going to be a lot smoother. So a church that really knows how to connect with its community partners that are already boots on the ground and is known by these partners. I think that's important. So, you know, I go to a lot of church development, church planting type deals, and they're always talking about knowing our city. Know your city. We know our city, right? I would say that for a church that knows its city, it's a church that should be known by its city. And when I say that, I'm not meaning the actual residents, although that's the goal, but I mean the people who are doing the work in the city. So when calamity happens, when something happens, you know, are they calling you guys? Or do they know you? Is the Hispanic Outreach Center, when something's happening in the Hispanic community and we need a faith-based partner, is Skycrest the first church that comes to mind because they're present? And so building community relationship is huge in what number 5 is trying to accomplish.
And I think to kind of add off of that, the distribution of information, kind of what I spoke about before between, you know, I speak with the city side and the community side, but being able to, not only in engagement efforts, but let's say we're emergency services in a hurricane. If something's going on in the city, a big event, something like that is also, you're exactly right. Now I've come here, I've made a connection. I know your contact information. I know your church. I've been here in this room. I know, some of the people here as well. It's so important. I didn't have that before, and now I have that. So now I know, hey, if there's something going on this street, if there's something going on in the neighborhood, if I know that there's a project happening or there's going to be construction or a development or any of those kinds of things, I now have that connection to give you that information so you can then spread that information to your parishioners as well.
So, if you could design your ideal church as a community partner, I think one of the biggest things is continuing to keep consistency, because it's nothing like starting something and not following through. So just continuing to be consistent, and I do feel like this is that first step as far as inviting us all here and networking amongst one another to find out what those needs are within the community.
Well, since Samantha stole my idea here that I had talked about and I got notes here, but I'm gonna capitalize it anyway because I think it's relatively important. And I talk about network, and when she had mentioned earlier about being able to come to an organization like this or any type of church where you're able to communicate and get something or say this is what we need, or establish a volunteer type organization, and her key word was a hurricane. I recently went down to Hurricane Irma in Fort Myers, and to actually see the amount of damage firsthand compared to what you see on TV, it's amazing. And to be able to have a network or an avenue to open up and say, hey, Skycrest this or ABC this, that itself is huge, because I can tell you what you see on TV is true and realistic. But until you drive down a street that you can barely drive down because there's so much debris and stuff on the road, it's just unimaginable. And to be able to have that network or that group of people to come together would be just a huge asset to the city.
So I would say as a neighborhood association, the ideal church would be one that would actually come to the monthly meetings, volunteer to support us in the events that we do, and become a partner.
Okay, so I apologize, because I had said if we had time, we would open it up for questions, and I really want to give some time, because these folks have given a lot of really helpful feedback. I want to give them a chance to share whatever they'd like, still in a short amount of time, about their organization. So if we have time at the end, once we get through this, we'll open it up for maybe a question or two. But at this time, I'd like to just open it up to you all. If you could keep it to 2-ish minutes, possible. We've given enough time. But if there's anything you'd like to share, we could share about ways folks can get involved. Really, the floor is yours, however you'd like to share about your organization.
Well, I'll just keep it short and sweet. I have business cards and flyers that I will leave at one of the tables, and you're more than welcome to grab something, and then it'll have information to contact me, and it'll also have information for you to sign up to volunteer if that is something that you are wanting to do.
Me, okay, wow. Tony said something super important. The church is, or at least should be, like one of the first things that come to mind when the community is going through something, right? When a family or an individual in your neighborhood, your area of service is going through something, it should be the church. But honestly, if we're real, that's not the case, right? The church in our country has a black eye, a lot of shenanigans, a lot of, right, things that have been going on, and we haven't represented Christ well. And so ideally, we should be that. For the most part, I don't think we are. I don't think people are calling the church when they're in it. But I think what you guys are doing puts you in a position to change that. Puts you in a position to change that. I'll give this short, brief story. I'll pass this mic along. I lived in High Point, a mobile home park for 7 years, on mission, and there was this one guy who hated me being in that mobile home park. Everybody knew I was about God, and the opportunity always changed to the spiritual component, spiritual things, and he would walk away upset. One night, I had an open door policy to the neighborhood. One night around 2 in the morning, he comes knocking on my door. He has joint custody of his kids, 5 and 8 years old, every other week. And that week, he had his kids with him. And around that time of night, he received a phone call that their mother had hung herself in their garage. And he doesn't know what to do. We're talking about consistency, right? We're talking about weighing the cost. What are we trying to do out here? Darkness happens. And are you consistent light so that when darkness does happen, people are going to seek that light? And so be that consistent light. And what you're trying to create this vision to serve this community, be that consistent light so that when darkness happens, the church is the first place people come to. Thank you.
Well, that was a little heavy. I mean, it would really be nice to have a pastor to reach out to when our staff are struggling with trauma that has occurred on campus. That would be, I realize it sounds like you and I are kind of continuing what we were talking about a minute ago when we have switched questions, but I just felt like that was important to say because that was what came to mind when Samantha was talking. I want to just kind of tell you a little bit about the variety of opportunities to volunteer there are at HEP. We have serving in the kitchen. We've got prep work in the kitchen. We've got Workforce Development Center that we would love to have mentors, career development mentors to come in and work with our residents and the members of the community. We have a mobile market that's selling produce that we grow in our garden. So we've got mobile market times that you can come and just help out on the concession trailer, help plant, help weed, help harvest, all of those types of things we've got. I mean, we pretty much have all of the things at HEP and almost a self-sustaining type of environment, but there are always volunteer opportunities. I brought some koozies with some cards in them that have information about HEP. The koozies are great if you're a soda drinker, so feel free to take one of those.
So my specific program is for seniors 60 and older. And so I'm looking for opportunities to come out to talk to seniors about some of the services that we provide and also share with them information and resources about some of our community partners and other kinds of resources that may benefit to them. In the back, I have a senior directory. So think of it as a frequently asked questions book. So we looked at questions that seniors called us about, and we try to put all the information about those resources in one little booklet. So I'm always looking for opportunities to come out and talk to any group of seniors about some of the things that we do. And the other one is if you know people in, for example, mobile home parks or other kinds of places, there's 150, 55 and older mobile and manufactured home communities in Pinellas County. Part of our area is talking to folks about disaster preparedness. So I know it's a long way till June, but we're already starting to think about the next hurricane season. And so one of the things that we're finding is that folks don't have a lot of information, particularly if they are only here part of the year or are new to Florida and haven't been through a hurricane season before. Just as an aside, we had hired a bunch of new employees and they'd never been through a hurricane. So you can imagine the panic that was going on sort of even within our own operators last hurricane season because they'd never been through one before. So I'm really looking for opportunities to come out and talk to folks and share information and resources.
Kip, we should connect on that. If there's anything that a takeaway for you all today, so I know that I've been useful for you all, is that you know where to go to get information about what's going on in your city. As I talk to people every single day, and that's the biggest thing that I hear is we never know what's going on. How do we find out? How do we get information? So there's a couple of key takeaways on that. One is we have a new website. It's called myclearwater.com. If you go to the very top right-hand corner on that website, it says sign up for city news. If you click on that, there's a list of probably 50 newsletters you can sign up for. All sorts of things across the city, whether you want special events, traffic alerts, road construction, you name it, it's on there. Emergency management alerts, all of that stuff. So you can go through and you can click on the topics that you're interested in receiving news on, a specific rec center, all sorts of things. The other thing is there is an app, it's called Clearwater Connect. And it's an app where you can go in and you download it on your phone. It's on both iPhone and Android. And you can go in, and it's meant for reporting problems. So if you have a street pothole or your sidewalk's cracked or anything like that, you can open that up, take a picture, tag your location, put in a couple notes, and it will send it off to whoever it needs to go to. It's really, really helpful if, I mean, a lot of people don't know exactly what department to call or who in that department or, you know, is this traffic, is this police? That app will send it to exactly the person. You don't have to worry about a thing. The other thing is back in the back table, I have My Clearwater magazines. That's our recreation-based magazine, so it has our classes, our rec centers, all of that information in there. I have magnets back there. It has every single city department and the phone numbers. So I recommend you take that, stick it up on your fridge, so if you ever need to call any of our departments for any reason, you have that number right there available. And then I also have a sort of a connect guide. So it has QR codes to access all of our online resources, our social media pages, everything like that. So if you're looking to get city news, city updates, know what's going on, special events, Coachman Park, we have a lot of really exciting things coming to town. That's the best way to do it. Thank you, guys.
Well, I'll go next. We don't have a lot of volunteer opportunities, unfortunately, but I will tell you that the police department plays a role or has a hand in each one of the people that are up here, and that goes to show that we're just not out there answering the call for service or going to the burglary or going to the suspicious person. As I mentioned earlier, it's the community support, community championship, that we have a connection with each one, being the mental health officers, the community liaison officers, and that's what we do out there. We try to incorporate, even with the youngsters out there, that we read books to the younger kids to encourage them to trust the police and build a relationship, and that starts early on. I really can't add anything else, to be honest with you, because everybody else has covered just about everything that needs to be said, I believe, from my side. I also left some magnets up there. They're probably not as fancy as Samantha's, but they are police department magnets. And I left some on my business cards. And to be honest with you, my desk number is on there, on a lot of them, and my cell phone for work. Please, if you have a question, reach out and call me. I don't have any shame in answering any type of calls. I have a really good relationship with someone in this room that I refer to as Dad, even though he's really not my dad, but Jim is a great guy, and I've known Jim a long time, and Jim knows how to get a hold of me if you lose my business card, but please don't be afraid to reach out.
I'd just like to thank you all for reaching out to the neighborhood, and we look forward to partnering with you. Thank you. Our meetings are the last Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock, and if there's 5 Wednesdays, it's number 5, not number 4, and it's at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 407 South Saturn, I believe. Yeah. So Wednesdays, the last Wednesday at 6, and we are really good at keeping it to about an hour. Oh, our website is under construction, but we do have a Facebook page, Skycrest Neighbors, and we put up activities on that as well.
All right, so we actually do have some time. So I don't know if you all had a chance, and I do want to add something, if I can throw a curveball. I told you about that question to answer on the back that said, my community is ... If you can add another one, because I would like your feedback on this. One thing about today that struck me was this. I would love to hear from you about what you heard, because y'all have a ton. I'm frankly going to go back to the live stream and watch it all, because there's just a ton to take in. So I would love to hear from y'all. So my community is blank. That's the printed question. And then if you want to write underneath, one thing about today that struck me was this, something that you're taking away. Okay, does anybody have a question to ask for all the panelists? Again, I ask that it just be broad enough that they all can answer it. Does anybody have a question? I'll bring the mic to you. Yes.
Hello. I just have a very, very open-ended question for you. What question haven't we asked you that you would like us to have asked you? Is there anything that you would, something you were looking forward to talking about that you didn't get a chance to talk about? And I know we kind of did that before, but let me give you another shot at that. Yeah, answer that question. Yeah, and answer the question. Yeah.
So is there a question we should have asked you that didn't, that you would like to answer?
I know it's complicated, I'm sorry.
I have just something small to add that would be actually really helpful feedback from you all to my programs, working with neighborhoods and even other churches across the city, is we're looking to develop a neighborhood grant program where we are going to provide funding for neighborhoods for small projects within those neighborhoods, whether it's a bike rack maybe at your local church or small business, or you're looking to have a flashing speed sign or a crosswalk, or maybe a park amenity like a shade structure over your park in your neighborhood. Some of those types of things that we hear often from our communities. So I would love to utilize you all and your group of individuals to hear from you all what some of those projects would be. Within this neighborhood or whatever neighborhoods you come from, but I think it would be really good feedback for us as we're developing this program to know, what would some of those things be in your communities? What are some of the challenges that you all see that we could help provide funding for and support for to help you accomplish those things?
I think one question that wasn't asked that I would have had asked would be, the police department, you see the officers out on the streets, but the one thing that people don't see and realize is something that Chief Slaughter is very progressive on technology. We just recently opened a real-time operations center within the District 2 Main Police Department. What does it do? It monitors all the cameras within the city. It's a direct connect for us to provide active and ongoing information if a high priority call for service goes out. But also, as a former homicide detective, one of the things it does, we have a registration program where you can register your security camera or your doorbell, Ring doorbell footage with us. We don't monitor it. We don't sit there and actively listen to your conversations or watch what's going on. But if there is something that happens in your neighborhood, we can say, hey, Joanna has this type of system, and we can reach out to her asking, hey, do you have any surveillance footage of if someone trying to car door? So that's really relatively unique. It plays a big part. We just went through spring break last week, and it played a very huge part in monitoring traffic and all the people on the beach. So that's my thing.
So we actually maintain the database for all the nonprofits in Pinellas County. There's 3,000 plus or so. One of the things that happens, though, is that people leave organizations, and you might be members of community organizations or whatever that are in the database, and they don't update when they leave, or the organization disappears, and we don't know. And so we actually have really two people whose job is to sort of keep the database current. So if you're part of an organization that might be listed in our database, or you're creating a new program that you want to be listed in the database, let us know and we can work on that. That helps the operators. So when someone calls in and wants X, they can go into the database and say, oh, Skycrest Methodist Church does a food pantry on this date, for example.
I thought your questions were good. I can't think of anything.
Yeah, you guys got good questions. I think there's a question that you guys already answered before coming to this event today. Is the church needed here? Is the church relevant? You guys had to have asked that question in order to be where you're at today. And so, yes, you guys are relevant. You guys are needed. And, you know, I'm very, like I said, I'm using faith-based vernacular because of my audience. But I'm very glad that you guys are doing what you're doing.
All right, does anybody else have one more question that you would like to ask? All right, Pam, and I think this will be our last question.
Hi, I live on top of the world, which is not city, it's county. And I was wondering what the coordination and cooperation is between city and county if someone calls. You know, what do you say? Oh, well, you're in the county.
So most of the staff at the city sort of know their equivalent staff within the county, or I would hope that they do. And same goes for St. Pete or, you know, Dunedin or Safety Harbor, because our boundaries, you probably know, you seem like you're right smack in the middle of Clearwater, but you're not Clearwater technically. So it's really on the staff to know how to navigate you through the resource on the other side. And I know the police department is very good at that. Our planning department, most people have that resource and they're available to send you to who you need in the county, or at least to provide a resource to help you start that journey. But I mean, On Top of the World reached out to me a couple months ago for your St. Patrick's Day parade, and I was able to connect them because you're right in the middle of Clearwater, so it makes a lot of sense for you to be connected within Clearwater. There's a lot of crossover there. But yeah, for the most part, we try to get you to the right person. I don't know if...
I would agree totally on what Samantha said. I could tell you right now, I could reach out on my phone and call my counterpart at the sheriff's office. But if a call does come in from On Top of the World, the comm center or the dispatchers are well aware of what goes on, and we transfer it. We have a very good working relationship with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Like I said, I could sit here and call. I could even call the sheriff right now, to be honest with you. That's the type of open door policy we have with each other.
All right. Well, at this time, first, if y'all will join me just to thank our panelists for their time and great insight. Y'all, this was extremely helpful for us. Thank you for taking time. There are so many folks up here that work in their positions Monday through Friday, and yet they've made time to be here on a non-work day. So thank you for your commitment to be here. We've got a lot to think about, a lot to process through, but it means so much that y'all were here. I want to say a special thank you to Priscilla, Joel, for all of your help in coordinating this as well. Pat, and everybody who had helped, Pat for coordinating food and logistics, everybody who helped us set up the room in here. Sam and Jake in the back, getting all of our tech stuff together. There's so much that goes on in this. Thank you all for your time. As I believe, I don't know if, does everybody, most folks have collateral back there, if they didn't put it back there. And Andrea, we'd be happy to put your business cards back there. And I had asked the panelists if they would commit till 2, so no obligation. You're welcome to stay and chat with folks if you'd like, or if you need to go, we're not offended. We have your information. Folks, I do want to ask that you please, this packet is for you to take for your reference, but I do ask if you answer those 2 questions. So my neighborhood is blank, and then something from today that struck me, or that's sticking with me, is blank. If you rip it off and just leave it on your tables, we'll pick it up. Pat, is there any housekeeping stuff about tables or cleanup or anything like that? Okay. All right, there is, I believe there's some extra food. If y'all need to grab any, you're welcome to. Just thank you so much for today, for being here. It really, really means a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.